This morning I'm just going to talk a little bit about what it takes to be a college level umpire. And not only a college level umpire, but an umpire out there that is respected and an umpire that people want to see assigned to their games. And a lot of questions that I'm going to ask during the course of this talk are really rhetorical. So I want you to think about them not only in terms of how they affect you directly, but also think about them in terms of all the umpires that you kind of interact with in your, weekly, daily, whatever interactions, and how you see those guys and how you see yourself as an umpire. So the biggest thing that I always ask an umpire in terms of when they're on the field is, are they demanding respect or are they commanding respect? Does anyone have an idea about what I mean when I say commanding respect out on the baseball field? Anything?
Being approachable.
Okay, yeah.
Being approachable and your presentation. Of yourself. Yeah.
So maybe how you look,
Yep.
as well as how you speak,
Yep.
how you walk out onto the field, all those kind of things.
That's right. Being courteous and letting them know right away.
Does anyone have any idea what I mean when I say demanding respect?
Bossy, like
Go ahead.
just like bossy, like chirping at the coaches over little things. I think over the top. I don't know if I'm going at it the right way, but just.
It seems like with the two demanding, you are lacking respect, so you want it. Commanding is like, wow, this person deserves respect.
Yeah, you start to be maybe a little bit overbearing, try to enforce things that maybe don't need to be enforced, so that somebody says, I have to bow down to that guy, that kind of thing.
Like they have value.
Yeah, go ahead.
Confidence versus arrogance.
Yeah, it's a very fine line in umpiring. I think we really need to appear confident in our calls, in the way we deal with people, the way we talk to people, but at the same time, you can really go over the top quickly. John, I'm going to put you on the spot. So for those of you guys who don't know, John was a head baseball coach at the junior college level for a very long time. And when I say that phrase to you in terms of your interaction as a coach, what does it mean to you?
The biggest thing was, if an umpire had great game management skills,
Yeah.
I knew it was going to be a very easy game
Sure.
to work with that crew.
Yeah.
And what I mean by game management is they would come and talk to me ahead of time. They could see things potentially evolving.
Yeah.
Whether it is with, hey John, here's what I'm seeing with this potential issue.
Yeah.
Please talk about, maybe address it in between innings. Hey, your bench is getting just a tad loud. Okay, bench jockeying, we don't want to have any of that.
Sure.
Please address that ahead of time. So I knew well in advance when I got the assignment of who was umping my games,
Yeah.
who I knew had the command respect versus the demand respect.
Yeah.
And so I had to almost change how I managed myself ahead of the game, knowing who the crew was that were doing my games.
Yeah. So would you say that at times maybe it would be more important to you to see a good game manager who maybe wasn't as great ball strike than a guy who was going to get almost everything right ball strike, but was a real pain in the ass to deal with?
Listen, I would take the guy who was less the asshole, okay, and would miss a call here and there,
Sure.
because I can work with that, knowing
Yeah.
how the human element is so involved in what
Yeah.
we do.
This is one that comes up for me. So for those of you guys that don't know, in addition to the college assigning that I do, I assign about 100 high schools in New Jersey and a lot of different recreation and travel ball type stuff. And I'm always frustrated with a group of umpires because they're very intent on, again, demanding that respect, by enforcing the littlest rules to the letter of the law. Okay? And I think you guys have all worked with people like that. You know, for a while in New Jersey, and I don't know if this was across all of Federation or, you know, everything, but they said kids couldn't wear sunglasses on their hat. Kids can't wear eye black. And not to say that we shouldn't enforce the rules, but I'm not there to be a police officer as it relates to things of that nature. So enforce the spirit of the rules. Think about where you are, why you're there, what's your intentions. And umpire to that effect. Don't umpire to the effect of being a police officer. The last two things are two of my favorites as they relate to high school umpires, umpires, whatever it is. How many guys have been in a high school meeting and had an umpire show up in their full uniform?
After a game.
After a game. Okay? So, if that happened, or was any of you guys, don't be that guy. Don't show up to a meeting in full uniform. Okay? Don't show up to a meeting and be the guy telling war stories in the front of the meeting. Okay? Nobody wants to hear it. Like, that makes me question what your why is. Does that make sense? Let's just talk a little bit about the stuff in the center here, and this kind of has to do with some assigning stuff and moving up the ladder, recognizing where you are, and going from there. So remember that it's really important that you pay your dues. Okay? I'm not talking about your financial dues. I'm talking about if there's an assignment that maybe you're not the most thrilled with, but it's a few miles more than you want to travel, or maybe it's not the greatest game, just remember where you sit kind of on that totem pole. And are you going to be the guy that tells the assigner yes, or the guy that tells them, you know, I'd rather do something else that day. So just keep that in mind, because what that ultimately affects is this one right here, and this is the big one. When I see your name on the sheet, do I want to click yes, or do I want to keep going? Okay? And there's guys that, if I see them open on a day, I'm like, shit, why is that guy open? He should be working every single day. And then there's other guys that I go by and I'm like, I know exactly why that guy's open. And it comes down to not only this type of stuff, but also, hey, have you participated in training? Have you looked to improve yourself? Have you done everything you can to be the best umpire you can be? And then the one below that is also really, really important. How does someone react when they see my name on their assignment sheet? I always wanted to be the guy that people are like, I want to work with him. If you're the guy that people don't want to work with, or when they see your name on the sheet, they're like, oh, you know, that's a situation that you want to try to get by and get around. And the one I haven't touched on right here, this is a big one for me, okay? I assigned probably 1,000 guys, okay? Okay? Realize that you're one of 1,000. That doesn't mean you're not important. It just means if you take up more than your allotment of time, it starts to get a little bit old, if that makes sense, okay? So there's a lot of things in assigning that absolutely we have to deal with, you know, and they take time, but, you know, I have some guys that want to send me a text message every day, even after I've asked them, please don't send me a text message, okay? Think about those things. Think about how they affect your ability to move up the ladder, your ability to deal with a guy like Chris on assignments, or me, and what image you're portraying and what image you're putting out there. When you umpire, you need to be honest with yourself and have a real self-awareness of what you've done out there, how people perceive you. I can't tell you how many people I deal with that their perception of themselves is so different than the way other people see them. And just always try to not be that guy. Try to be self-aware so that you're better at interacting with partners, coaches, whatever it may be, players. I think the next point here about being defensive goes a lot towards game management. When something happens on a baseball field, are you willing to explain your ruling in a way that is concise and clear, or do you get your backup? And I think in my experience, most coaches are looking for an explanation of what has happened out there in a clear and concise way. And I think, John, you can probably speak to this. I think you get a pretty decent feeling when you go out there as a coach and somebody gets defensive versus someone's able to tell you point by point what happened on that play. And maybe you're out there, you don't even know what the answer is. You're not sure he missed it, but the way he described it to you is a lot different depending on whether it's defensive or whether it's clear, concise.
Absolutely. You know, the biggest thing when I would always come out and talk to an umpire, because the last thing that I wanted to do was be that coach that was always running out of the dugout with my hair on fire. So I would always come out of the dugout and I would approach the umpire with the intent of having a conversation. Because if I approached knowing that I was going to be able to have a conversation, I was probably going to get the best level of detail back.
Sure.
And allow that umpire to structurally give me his thoughts.
Yeah.
And so, you know, usually my first line was, hey Chris, hey Alex, what did you see there?
Sure.
And because here's what I saw.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you know, the call was never going to be overturned, and I understood that. But my objective was, maybe I just want to give you the thought process of, hey, if I see this happen again, maybe that's going to go my way.
Sure.
And not the other way.
Sure.
So that's how I always, you know, would come on out and try to approach it. The best level of, for me, was a conversation.
Yeah.
Because if the umpire sees you come running at him, what's your initial instinct?
Yeah.
Just what you said, defensive.
Get your back up.
Get your back up. Whereas I come on out, oh, now I can have that level of conversation.
Yeah, and in terms of defensiveness and things like that, I think defensiveness sometimes breeds itself out of taking things personally.
Absolutely.
I've had a lot of discussions this year with umpires about trying to look at game management and dealing with coaches as a business transaction. They're going to give you whatever they give you, and then you are going to respond to it. If they're being personal, that doesn't necessarily make the conversation personal. That we're not going to go there as umpires. If they want to be personal, that's their problem. We're going to react the way we need to. Okay. And I just want you to be conscious of that when you have situations or you have dealings with coaches. You know, every action creates a reaction. And our job is to stay professional, not go to a personal place, and act in the best interest of baseball. Okay, that's our job, to make sure that two teams can compete fairly in a contest and get a winner. That's what we're out there to do. This one I probably don't have to address, I hope. We'll find out, I guess, today. But if we're wearing charcoal gray pants as an organization, don't be wearing heather gray pants that are pink, okay? And if you see a guy that's doing that, let him know. I mean, something like that makes us all look bad, especially if you're a member of an organization. If you're a member of a high school group and you guys are servicing a league or a conference and somebody you're working with is wearing pants that are almost pink or white, you know, let them know. That stuff all means something. And honestly, we all represent each other in terms of umpiring. So just keep that in mind. Look, there's going to be some situations that's just going to happen. The regular course of the way the world turned, you're going to have that call that went against them, or they just don't believe you, or you had a bad first experience. And those are going to exist. There's going to be some teams, some coaches that it's like, oh no, this guy. But we want to limit that. We don't want to add to the fire. So If naturally it's gonna happen sometimes, great, but let's not bring it upon ourselves by creating more and more problems. Because honestly, in amateur baseball, if they don't wanna see you, eventually they're gonna win, okay? They're gonna win that argument eventually. So don't let them take away something that you enjoy because of something that you do, okay? Be professional, get into situations where, they want to see it. Now that doesn't mean kiss people's ass, that doesn't mean get into situations where you're calling people on the phone all the time. It just means go do your job, do everything the way you're supposed to do it, and let the chips fall. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Do you expect playoffs or do you earn them? One of the most striking conversations that I ever heard in my career was actually from this guy right here. And every year when he was working, someone would make a comment about his postseason and where he's been and what he's done. And he just always cut them off and say, hey, I don't know if I'm going to be there next year. I got to earn it again next year. And we have so many guys that I think once they arrive at postseason, doesn't matter the level, the guy who's working the Little League finals every year, high school state playoffs, college regionals, and they just expect that that's what they're going to get. They've achieved that level, so that's now their new bottom, okay? And they're looking to go further and further, but they're not re-earning that every year. So be the guy that re-earns it every year. Hold yourself to a high standard. 2 ears, one mouth. Keep your ears open and your mouth shut. When you have to say something, do it. You have no idea the number of phone calls I get that just relate to people saying stupid things on the field. Okay? And for no reason. Tomorrow, if you're working 3 games, you don't have to tell anybody in your 3rd game that it's your 3rd game and you're hot. Because what are they going to do to you the first time that something goes against them? They're going to turn it around on you. So keep in mind, everything that you say will be used against you. Okay? A lot of people say you can't quote silence. Last thing, because I think the hustle piece we all kind of understand. I think the best drill that I can show you guys to demonstrate hustle is what Brian was doing yesterday. If I start in the C position and there's a force out to end the inning at first base, where am I standing? Where's my partner standing? Okay? And I'm sure you guys have all worked with a lot of people that they took that play from the same C position they started in. It was the wrong C position when they started, and it was the wrong C position when they ended. Okay? Keep that in mind. Those are all perception things. Do you want to talk to your partners after the game? Or do you just slam the trunk and hit the road as fast as you can? Okay? That's not, I know you guys will work with people you don't want to talk to. Okay? You'll work with people that have nothing constructive for you. And I'm not saying this doesn't apply to that. But I'll give you an example of Danny. Danny is a guy who, in the summer, works a ton of base assignments for me, 18 and under, with guys that want to be better high school umpires, want to be better college umpires. And never does Danny force himself on a guy. Okay? If a guy wants to start talking, Danny will stay there for 2 hours. Okay? And whenever he's done with the game, he calls me and he says, yep, guy closed the trunk and left, I didn't say a word to him. Yep, or hey, we spent an hour after the game, this guy's gonna be really good, really wants to get better. Okay? You never know who you're working with. There's a lot of guys that are in that situation with Danny and don't even know who he is. Keep that in mind, okay? When you're with people that you think can help you, people are very generous with their time, okay? So, this was a little bit of a rant this morning. Some issues that have come up for me recently in the past couple of days. but also something that I think really can help you guys. There's a lot of stuff we can teach you mechanically, but I think there's also a world of knowledge out there that relates to game management, how you're perceived, how you feel about umpiring.